all the meetings, the Board of County Commissioners meetings and all of them.
I tried to listen to it. I had my volume way up, could not hear anything. I had to put it on my phone and put earbuds in, and it was bad.
Historic Preservation Board is called to order. So I will, if everybody's had a opportunity to look over the minutes, I'll entertain a motion for the minutes.
I have changed, I have a modification in it.
Huh?
There is an error in it, a typo, I believe, on page 4. They refer to Ms. Casali instead of Mr.
It's in fashion these days.
Yeah, page 4.
Okay. Is there any other corrections or additions?
No.
I'll motion to approve if there's no other comments.
Okay,
I second.
have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Let's see, old business, we have the election of Historical Preservation Board officers for the 2026 through 2027 year. And let's see. We have Sean Atwell for chair and Steve Griffith for vice chair. Any other nominations at this time?
So I have a question. So, Sean, did you resubmit your,
I'll resubmit here soon.
okay,
Yeah, before my term is up.
okay, thank you.
Any other comments or suggestions? If not, then I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move we approve
I second.
the slate
Okay.
as indicated by you now, rather than what was printed in the packet.
Okay,
Without the misspellings, yes.
okay. So so all in favor of Sean and Steve taking chair and vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Cemetery work update. I guess we'll start with Kathy.
Well, it would be good if I printed out my information. But I will tell you that we did some work at Sauter, just basic maintenance. We're looking to do another cleanup this month. McKendree, we had some folks come out and do some work, help with the maintenance last month, and we're gonna do some more this month. And, my big thing lately is about the Branding Cemetery. So the Branding Cemetery is at Gary's Ferry, and it's already on the Florida Master Site File. I've been out there before. I was out there about a year ago, went out there again recently, and there's a whole preservation scope of work that's supposed to be done, and not all of it's been done. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. There is I don't know if you want to call it a kiosk. It's a little building inside the community center that has some artifacts that were put in there. That's part of it. But the headstones that were found there were removed for safekeeping. So we're trying to figure out who has them. And I couldn't see any markers as to where they will be reinstalled. There was no markers about the cemetery. There was no, I don't know, there was nothing other than the little kiosk at the community center. So I sent all the documents that was done by the archaeologist back in 2021 before the, development was done. I sent it over to the State of Florida Historical Commission and asked them what their involvement was, because I don't see what's been done, other than this little bitty kiosk with some, artifacts in it. There's no sign, there's no nothing. So I'm a little bit concerned about what's going on there. So a little bit of background. So Gary's Ferry was actually created before Fort Heilman. It was done on the north side of Black Creek. There was a settlement there. There was a lot of people that lived there and buried there. And then the Seminole Wars came and Fort Heilman came about. That came across Black Creek there. And then Fort Heilman was gone by 1842. But Gary's Ferry continued to be there beyond that point. And there's people that are buried there. So I've started doing some research on the people that I know were buried there and trying to figure out what happened with them. But I don't see any historical marker or anything else. But I can tell you the research I've done on Genealogy Bank, which has all kinds of newspaper articles about Gary's Ferry, there's a huge number of newspaper articles across the country about the Seminole Wars and Gary's Ferry. So I'm a little bit concerned why there isn't a marker or anything else at Gary's Ferry.
Well, the precise location of these burial places has never been very well settled, except when they run across some actual human remains. But they didn't, for example, the one by the boat ramp, that apparently was usually regarded as a burial during the period of the war, but it's also been referred to at times as a Baptist cemetery and so forth. So, and as for the north side, those were all kind of informal too, so, you know.
Right, but I've done some research on Martha Tyson, which is one of the few remaining headstones that are legible from Gary's Ferry. And she died in 1846, which is beyond the time of Fort Heilman.
Yeah.
And she was buried at Gary's Ferry. And Samuel Gary, which, started the ferry and the bridge and all that stuff in the 1830s, he's supposedly buried there. His wife is buried there. There's several different things, and I found another one for Charles Hewitt that died in 1839 that is buried at Gary's Ferry. So it's more than Fort Heilman. I mean, Gary's Ferry went beyond what Fort Heilman did, because obviously Martha Tyson was buried there in 1846, and Fort Heilman was destroyed in 1842. So,
it was devastated by a hurricane,
right,
but it was still administered by the army from Palatka for another year.
right, but not in 1846. So
True.
I'm wondering why there isn't a historical marker for Gary's Ferry and the community that was there, because it was there before the Seminole Wars, before Fort Heilman, and after Fort Heilman. So I've been doing a lot of research about that area and the people that are supposedly buried there. But when you go there, I was there a year ago, and there was no remnants of anything. The archaeologist and Kevin Hooper did a report in 2021 about that whole area before the development came in for that subdivision that came in that area. And, there's a whole scope of work for preservation that has not been followed. Not everything that they've scoped out in the preservation scope of work has been done.
Well, what things were on the list that haven't been done that you're aware of?
So I have the whole document of it. National Register of Historic Places, Heritage Trail. I mean, there's a whole list of things on here. So other than the little kiosk at the, community center in the subdivision that has some art, artifacts, that's all that's done. Nobody knows anything about the cemetery. There's no markers. If they remove the headstones, there's supposedly supposed to be markers where the headstones are supposed to be replaced. I have seen no evidence of that.
They're gonna get there. Jerry, what's your understanding about how soon they'll get the headstones?
Yeah, my understanding from Kevin is that they have them in safe storage. There's no reason to put them in situ until the rest of the project is ready to go. But they know where the cemetery's limits, at least the ones that were allowed to be created by the developers, who of course had to seed those portions of land for that purpose. So he expects to see the remaining grave markers that can be located, he put back into place. That apparently is a commitment.
Who has the headstones?
I don't know. It didn't bother me. He said, they've been secured and so forth. They've been kind of orphans for a long time because the people who owned that part of the Jennings property were no longer really connected by blood to the Jennings. They gradually became, people who were related by marriage. So they had no particular interest in putting everything back together as soon as possible. In fact, they probably would have preferred that they had not been.
So is the
but anyhow, they are
archaeologist or-
supposedly in a known storage place.
And
But what is the known storage place? Is it with the archaeologist?
Yeah, we can,
Kevin gave his permission to talk to you, Kathy. That's why I shared his contact information. But I shared it right before the meeting, knowing this would come up. So, and I didn't get his permission till like 2 hours ago. So, and he's more than willing to talk to you about that. And sounds like he's gonna come to the Historical Society in September and present probably on the Black Creek area there.
the north side.
Oh,
So
north front.
Gary's Ferry, my concern is that we've got this great marker for Fort Heilman, but Fort Heilman came about after Gary's Ferry, and Gary's Ferry existed beyond Fort Heilman, but there's no historical marker for the community that existed there.
Well, just keep in mind that in those days, you didn't have, there never was a corporate limit to the town of Gary's Ferry. It was just an expression that people identified with. Sometimes it included Virginia Bluff next door, where the Buddingtons had their citadel, and so forth. And sometimes it was not considered to be part of it. The post office went back and forth between Whitesville, that is Virginia Bluff, and Gary's Ferry.
But in 1831, Samuel Gary petitioned the territory of Florida to build a ferry there.
Yeah.
In 1834, he petitioned them to build a bridge. Okay, so that was before Fort Heilman, and there is a considerable amount of documentation and newspaper articles about Gary's Ferry and the Seminole Wars around that area. But
Yeah.
we seem to just kind of forget about Gary's Ferry. It was a huge part, not just Fort Heilman, it was before and after. And there was a whole community there that people lived there and died there and were buried there, but we just kind of forgot about it.
But it sounds like you are advocating that we put a marker there, and that could be a topic of discussion. I don't think
Yes,
it has come up that they don't want a marker. It sounds, you've made a case, sounds like we want a county marker.
I think we need to have something that shows the historic value of Gary's Ferry. I mean, I can tell you, if you look at the newspaper articles around the country during the Seminole Wars, they all talk about Gary's Ferry. Not so much about Fort Heilman, they talk about Gary's Ferry.
Well, they talk about it, yeah, it's more or less interchangeable in the public mind and usage at that time because it was just there. Many of the people who died will probably never be located in any cemetery because they were strung out along the federal road to Jacksonville and beyond, and they were dying of various fevers and cholera and everything else, you name it. They were probably just buried where they died.
Absolutely.
Right, so, yeah, so,
So my
and
question.
before Gary's Ferry, by the way, the place was known by Clark's Ferry because Gary purchased the rights. And before that, I think there was this guy, what was his name? Fontaine? No, not Fontaine. Anyway, so there was a succession of names applied to the place. And poor Gary died in '39, so.
Yes, he
But
did.
but it continued to be known as Gary's Ferry for several more years until they decided that Middleburg, for some reason, was the new name for the place. So,
Yeah, because Gary's Ferry and Whitesville combined and became Middleburg.
well, yes, although Whitesville kind of is sort of like a zombie. It, came alive again now and then before it finally faded away completely, but yes.
So there's a lot of history at Gary's Ferry. And so my concern is, number one, we've got this development that's there, and I know that archaeologists and Kevin Hooper have done a lot of research about that area. But when I went out there, I was really concerned that there's nothing other than a little kiosk with some artifacts.
Well, yeah, but actually, unless they took the markings away, there were various tape areas to mark the reserve spaces, including the cemetery.
There's nothing there.
Well, there was a few months ago when I was out there, but
I've
whatever.
been all through there and can find nothing.
Well, sorry you
So-
couldn't. So, but it's, they've delineated these zones which the developers have, pledged to reserve for it. But these things, as you probably know, take time, particularly if any funding or grants get involved. So,
But their report started 5 years ago.
well,
So how long does it take to put markers and things out? I just am a little bit concerned that it's getting swept under the rug.
Good concern. I think they're waiting for the development to get done, and it's pretty much done at this point, so.
yeah.
Do you want to lead the charge? If I understand right, any one person can put forth for a marker. Do you want to lead the charge with that?
I would be happy to do that.
And we'll give you support?
yes.
All right. It's a start, so.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll email you the application. You can get started on it.
I did, there's very few markers that were legible from the burials at Gary Ferry. When Elizabeth Spencer did her work, she said there were 4 that were legible. I found 2 that were legible since then, which is Charles Hewitt and Martha Tyson. I've done an extensive work on Martha Tyson and found out, all about her background and how she ended up at Gary's Ferry, which was very interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned about who has the remaining headstones and where they're going to be placed. And
Well, you could probably have a conversation with Kevin Hooper, who would probably.
yes, I'd be happy to.
As I understand it, initially, David Starling was a designated caretaker of that whole area. And so he had, permission to investigate, find stuff, and try to preserve it. Problem is, the actual owners were relatively indifferent to these things, and that's a common problem, not only in Middleburg, but in the county, that the people who own the property don't find it in their interest to, preserve large areas that had a historical significance. They'd rather they be forgotten, I think. So it's kind of been an uphill struggle for years, usually against the people who want to preserve it. So, yeah. But
I
it's good.
agree.
It's good that
It's
we
one
can.
of our challenges.
Yep. But I would suggest that if there is going to be a marker, it ought to be between the forks of the creek, where the ferry came across under Gary's day.
So is it interesting, the last time I was out there, which was about a week ago, I went to the sales office for, the developer.
Mm-hmm.
And the salesman didn't know anything about it. He was like, well, there's a kiosk over there with some artifacts and, and I said, well, there's a cemetery. There was a whole development over here in a cemetery. And his comment to me was, well, I hope people don't find out about that. They may not want to buy here. And I said, no, this is a great thing. It's
Yeah.
a historic thing. And you know what? It makes for quiet neighbors.
Yeah, they'd like to sell every inch. I mean, the salespeople would, yeah.
And it's nice they have that kiosk, because you don't see that very much, so at least they went that far.
Yes.
They do have some. Yeah, they've done a little bit of work since I was there a week ago. They still have more work to do. I'm just trying to find out who's updating the kiosk. I think it's the people with the archaeologist, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Okay. Anything else with cemeteries?
Pleasant Point, I'm still getting my last Veterans Headstone for Henry Bennett, and thank you, Kathy, for your assist with that. I just haven't got back to it. And the only other thing is FPAN, the Florida Public Archaeological Survey folks will be out on the 18th of this month, and they're going to try to keep going and see how fast we can get it surveyed.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, moving on to historical marker progress. First up is St. Mary's Episcopal Church.
So that one's been approved by the council, and it's been sent off for production. Production takes 5-6 months, so.
Okay. And what about the Middleburg Colored School?
We have sent a letter rescinding our, the approval that was erroneously given to that other organization, and now that it's been rectified, so that should be being reviewed by the council.
Okay.
Did that, just point of information, did that other organization come up with extensive documentation of their proposal, or
No.
no, they just got it?
On what? What are you asking?
Well, the Middleburg Colored School, because originally, one of our members was pushing this for several years and did a lot of work, and had lots of footnotes and other documentation about what was, so I'm curious where these people.
It was not as near as in-depth as Maureen's work that she had researched for at least 5-6 years.
So it's being combined.
No, we're going with Maureen's.
Okay.
Oh, we are? Oh, goody. Okay, all right, good for her.
Okay, and the Middleburg Museum Civic Center.
That's submitted and also waiting council review.
And 4-11.
Waiting on text from you. I've sent you a couple of emails, Jerry. So.
Well, that's When I inherited this project, I guess, from people who got it started, and Deirdre and Billy and Tom Parham had, as far as I understand it, started the original draft.
Yes.
And it included some interesting details, but they referenced some sort of a book that I'd never seen, and I still haven't seen it. So, you know, to say, okay, that Soldier's Pond, you know, out of the hundreds of pages of stuff we found in the National Archives, I didn't see anybody talking about things like that. So there must be some interesting source that's in this mystery book that I want to cite to make a good, complete survey. So do you have any idea what became of it, the book?
I'll check my stuff again to see if I missed anything, because I've moved within the recent years, so I'll double check my stuff and see if I can find anything.
You think Mr. Parham might have the reference of the book?
It either came from him or it came from Deidre.
Yeah, I talked to her several months back, and she didn't seem to have.
Because I want to say she found something about it in a Keystone history book.
Good, well, maybe we can lean on her and try to squeeze those things out. By the way, I did get another recent report from Mr. Parham, who says he was given permission to survey yet another lot in Keystone, and he found nothing there. So he's doing the Thomas Edison by elimination, I guess. He's going one by one, and so he's not done, he thinks.
Okay.
Yet, but that would be nice to kind of find fairly persuasive evidence of where the little fort was. Yeah, so it's going gradually, slowly, yes.
Okay. That's it for the historical marker progress. New business? Anybody have any new business? Okay, public comments, seeing nobody in the audience, I'll open and close the public comments. Staff comments.
I have just one comment that I will be sending you an email with a training that the state's putting on Secretary of Interior standards for historic preservation. So that training is on June 24th. So you'll be getting that email shortly. And that's all I have.
Is that in person or?
No, it's a webinar. Sorry, I should explain that.
Is there a time on that?
Offhand, I don't know the time, but you'll get the email, which will have it. Typically, they're like 12 to 1:30 or so. They're right around lunchtime.
Okay, we are now to board comments, and I'll start down at the far end, and
I don't have anything, thank you.
Jerry?
I'm curious, I gather that before we got involved, there have been a whole series of like webinars that are done by this organization that Beth called our attention to some time ago. Did any of them, as far as anybody knows, ever deal with the question of historical zoning areas and everything, so we wouldn't have to start at the beginning and reinvent the wheel if there were successful or useful models for us to start working on zoning for this purpose? Because of course every month that goes by we don't have a zoning ordinance, and therefore we don't have applications for either inclusion or exception. And so if we could draw on prior experience from other groups that have dealt with this, that'd be a good thing. Is there anything like a master list of all the subjects that have been covered in the last few years?
Not that I'm aware of. I can go back and look and see at my notes. I think there may have been a training a while ago, but
Yeah,
you know,
that'd be.
it's also a matter of maybe looking at other communities and see what see where they've got,
Yeah.
you know, robust historic districts. look at
And
their,
another thing that would, well, actually, I guess that would be more useful to the local museums themselves, but protocols for accessioning of things in local museums, or for that matter, I guess even the county's archive, would be good if that had been covered in some detail in the past. Because once you get into the weeds on how to word these loans versus donations, and what kind of language has worked out in the past for organizations that take custody of artifacts and manuscripts, would be really good, because it gets to be pretty sticky very fast when you try to actually pin down the verbiage. So if any of that was done, that would be another thing for us to look at.
Okay, Kathy?
Oh, well, just one other thing I might mention. I don't know whether this is the right timing, but every year, the conclusion, the formal conclusion of the Second Seminole War is commemorated in St. Augustine with a solemn ceremony where they collected all the bones of the servicemen who had fallen in battle, and they reburied them in St. Augustine and actually, in that respect, it was the first national cemetery in the country. And they put them under these pyramidal things, and every year we're treated to yet more information about who was there and who was not buried. And it's a great little story in itself. So anybody who would like to attend, it's going to be, I think, Saturday the 15th of August. It's always in the middle of August because that's when the original ceremony was. So make sure you bring a nice sun hat or something, and they have water distributed and so forth. And if you really want to go all the way, there's a little luncheon that you can subscribe to for about $35 and support the whole enterprise. But it's been going on for years now, and it's always interesting to see it. They'll usually get mules or horses to carry the caisson with the alleged remains, and they have soldiers in period garb and all the rest, and then the townspeople follow. Lately, the Freemasons have become re-involved because they were part of the original ceremony. In fact, I suspect it was a big, Masonic project at the time, because you got the pyramids, you got the Masonic symbols and all the rest. So they're really happy with that now. They show up with their gloves and their aprons and, all the things that George Washington liked to do. So anyhow, I can supply information to anybody who's interested. You can find it on the internet too, but it's 1842, St. Augustine, August, I think, 15th. All right, that's it.
Kathy?
So I have a comment. I wasn't here at the last meeting, and I had difficulty listening to the meeting online. But Barbara had made a comment about her concern about traditions and burial traditions at cemeteries. And I will tell you that going through numerous trainings with the Florida Public Archaeology Network and working with the state of Florida, there are very strict guidelines about dealing with cemeteries. And we are not allowed to deal with any artifacts. And artifacts can be anything from shells to, a variety of things at a gravesite. One of the cemeteries that we've been maintaining for the last few years, there is a palmetto growing in the middle of a grave. We know the grave is there. There's a headstone. There's a palmetto. We cannot remove it. We can cut it back, but we cannot remove it. So we are very careful about what we can and cannot do as far as those things are concerned. So they have really strict guidelines about artifacts. When we do reports on different historic cemeteries, we are required to list any artifacts, which include things like shells, right? Because people could just put shells around a grave or whatever. So where we are aware of those things, we are very cautious about making sure that they are preserved and not removed. So I wanted to let you know that. We also, I guess, at the last meeting talked about areas for recognition. I did not see it on the agenda.
One of the addendums here. Attachments.
So we talked about the areas for recognition, and about doing a certificate and all that great stuff. So what do we do about nominating people for that recognition?
Just to make a note, it's under attachment C. It's the first document under attachment C, areas of recognition.
Right, on the agenda for today?
Yeah, I think so far we haven't really pinpointed that, but just informally, I would think if any of us believe somebody's contributed to the community, with the historic preservation, we would bring it to the board and see if they're worthy of being recognized.
So I'd like to make a nomination. Okay, one of the categories that was listed on there is preserving, restoring, and stewarding historic sites in Clay County. I would like to nominate Megan Copage. So Megan, God love her, she has been an integral part on doing a lot of research of the history of Clay County. She has not only provided her physical, work at numerous cemeteries, but done research. She's worked at Sauter, she's worked at McKendree, she's done a lot of work at Pleasant Point. She does a lot of research work. She constantly is out there looking at the history of our county. And I strongly recommend that she is recognized for her work.
So might I suggest that you also had a recommendation, someone you would like to acknowledge? Why don't you write an email up of the history and what you're wanting them to be acknowledged for? And I'll
Right.
get the certificates made. I will also, reach out to you as far as contacting them. We need to coordinate when you will be here and when you're the person you would like to recognize. Again, our communications team would like to do a little story on it as well. So there's, if any of you have someone you want to nominate, just write it up, send me an email as to who it is, and we will coordinate and get them on the agenda.
Absolutely.
Should we put it on the agenda and do motions and then?
Well, we don't know when Charlie Solom's gonna be available to come in,
Okay.
when we can coordinate all this. So
When might we have certificates?
I can try and get them for next time.
Okay.
So I apologize, I don't have them this time, so.
So you're asking me to send you an email with the background and information?
Yes, because they're gonna wanna,
Yeah.
put some information on the
She's done an
certificate.
awesome job at numerous cemeteries and preserving the history of Clay County.
Well, I'm hearing one thing that you're nominating people, but I also heard in there that then the board would agree with you. Is that part of it? Yeah,
This
'cause
is your
I heard
process. If-
Stephen say something about making a motion and approving it, and so it made me think that you would present, well, you just were speaking of your person, and if you say, I move that we recognize her, and then we vote on it, because someone may have a problem with it, because it will be coming from the committee. So,
Is that
That's
fair? She
correct.
would submit
That's
the
correct.
email to you with information, you would present it to the board, we will make a motion and then vote on it if we see proper.
If that's the process you want, yes,
Do you think that's too,
it's your process.
So I need to hear from other people then.
I like that as a process.
That seems to be the reasonable way to do it.
I'll entertain a motion on the process for nominating people for recognition for contributing to the history, preserving of the history of Clay County.
I second. I motion.
And your motion is that a member of this board has to sponsor the person and bring the candidate before the board for recognition to be voted on?
Not in person,
No.
but that you would send to Beth information, like I would nominate so-and-so. You'd get the information, you'd email all of us.
Oh, well, no, I'll put it on the agenda, then you can consider them at the next meeting.
Right, but we'd have the data to read it ahead of time, like so-and-so did this, this, and this, and then we can say, well, of course, or not.
And vote on it at the next meeting.
Yes, information.
I see
President.
one little problem with that. I thought that any citizen of the county was entitled to propose someone for it. The board would still vote on it, but I
They
don't.
could propose it to the board and somebody here would sponsor that.
Yes, I guess so, but so there wouldn't have to be a particular sponsor on the board in that case, right?
It could be.
Someone would have to initiate the sponsorship, and I guess we can vote to see if that.
Yeah.
I personally say until it becomes an issue, I say we have a board sponsor. I don't see people breaking down the door to sponsor people for,
True. But
Recognition,
of course, then
but-
we don't need to exclude them by, any restrictive language from proposing it, right?
Well, we could let them know to approach a board member, and the board member would probably, in most cases, be more than happy to expedite it for them.
all right, so I have a motion and a second. Or do I have a second?
I'll second Sean's motion.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So carried. Okay, anything else? Lisa?
I don't have anything.
How about the rest of this board? Didn't you have any
He's working his way down.
cool ideas that you wanted to introduce before we leave?
Well, I'm working all the way down.
Right. Are they, so they're still thinking about it over there?
I don't know, I just asked Melissa, so now I'm getting ready to ask Sean.
Good.
No board comments from me, personally, but I do find interest in the archives, if there is any, for the seminars that we have and what's available. Because I think we definitely need some sort of baseline for some of our processes. It'd be nice. So if you do have those, that'd be nice, Beth.
So typically what they would share is just their PowerPoint that they presented, so it's not like it's a recorded webinar that you could see, but I can, if I have it saved, I'd be happy to share it.
Thank you.
All right, Kathy, your suggestion about Megan is great, and she might even bring us pizza for after the board meeting.
I'm
So
telling you,
that's my only comment.
she's a great woman.
I have no comment.
All right. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.
So what was the issue with the volume of the sound? Yeah, it was bad.
Did
I've listened to other ones, and
anybody want these brochures here?
Everybody has their own.
Oh, they do. Oh, okay.
I've
Thank you.
listened on my computer, I've listened on my phone, I've on YouTube, I've on,
Apparently overlooked in the first
variety of
round
stuff,
because of
and
being
I've got
shorter.
the volume up, and it just, it's not
You
working.
put the short in the short spot.